Now, I want to make this clear. I feel like I need to make this clear. I don't hate JuJu Smith-Schuster, the man. I don't feel like JuJu is a bad guy. I feel like a former receiver of the Pittsburgh Steelers, a former teammate of his, who some compare him to, say he's going down that same path, and Antonio Brown, who I covered while he was with the Steelers. I feel like he's a bad guy, okay, despite winning a championship, winning a Super Bowl, and catching a TD from Tom Brady in the big game. I feel like Antonio Brown is a bad guy. I don't think any of that absolves him from many of the reports of just how much of a disgusting person he is, and also some information that I know that's not even out there necessarily in the public conscious. I think Antonio Brown's a bad guy, but I don't think JuJu's a bad guy. But on this episode of Mic Drop here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, and of course, SteelersNow.com, I'm Mike Asti, and I'm here to tell you why, while I don't think JuJu is a bad guy, and this is not personal, I don't think JuJu Smith-Schuster is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler moving forward, and I don't think JuJu Smith-Schuster should be a Pittsburgh Steeler moving forward. Now, again, this is not personal, and I know that the second anyone criticizes JuJu fans immediately rush to his defense. While he's polarizing, there are some ride-or-die JuJu fans out there, and they are not even just Steeler fans. There are just JuJu fans out there. And hey, you want to be a fan of a player, you want to ride or die with a player, that's on you, that's fine. But I don't feel like you guys are really coming at this with a complete, clear head. Coming at this about what makes sense for the franchise, analyzing him as a player, thinking clearly to everything that is involved in this, knowing the situation of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I don't feel those JuJu fans are coming at this without a bias, okay? They want JuJu on this team no matter what. They don't want to hear anything about JuJu not being on this team. They don't want to hear any criticism of JuJu just in general. And I imagine they're going to ride or die with JuJu, even if he is no longer on the Pittsburgh Steelers. That'll be an interesting test. We'll see how many of the JuJu Steeler fans stay with him when he is no longer a Pittsburgh Steeler. But if you can come at this open-minded, if you can come at this without a bias, like myself, again, I'm covering this team. I'm not necessarily just coming at this as a rabid fan of this team. In fact, my fan card is long gone because I believe that's necessary while covering a team. I'm coming at this just off of the body of work, what I know, what I see, what I've covered, and the situation of this team in terms of my analysis of JuJu moving forward. And JuJu's been a great player, maybe better than some would have expected overall in totality. When he was drafted by the Steelers, and at that time they had AB, best receiver in football, some at that time were saying it wasn't a need position, but the Steelers like to draft a guy as a receiver early if they feel he's good enough. Some hadn't heard of JuJu prior out of USC. Obviously, people who followed college football maybe have heard of him, but it wasn't like he was Michael Crabtree coming out of college. He wasn't considered the best receiver in the game. He wasn't somebody who people were saying, slam dunk, got to draft JuJu, he's going to dominate for you. He wasn't that guy coming out of college. And a lot of NFL fans, a lot of football fans who just follow the Steelers maybe, Steeler fans, that doesn't necessarily mean they're following college football. And if they are, they're probably following Pitt, West Virginia, more of the regional teams around the Pittsburgh area. Even if they're spread out of the country, they probably maybe went to those schools or are still following those schools. Rare to find the USC Steeler fan. And I get Lynn Swan has that connection. I get Zach Banner. I get JuJu now, Troy Polamalu. So maybe that has added some USC Steeler fan connection of those great players who went to USC and then became Steeler greats. But just in general, USC is not really a hotbed for people from Pittsburgh or connecting to Steeler fans outside of those players. But maybe it is. Who the hell knows? That's my hypothesis, though. So it's not like everybody was aware of JuJu. But right out of the jump, JuJu 917 receiving yards, a fantastic rookie year. That's a rookie year that in total yards can be compared to Randy Moss in terms of right out of the gate production. And Randy Moss had tons of hype despite his controversy. People were expecting that from him, where he, on the jump, was immediately the best receiver in football at that point, revolutionizing the position. I don't know if I'm going to say JuJu was revolutionizing the position. He wasn't the best receiver in football right away. Some could argue wasn't the best receiver on his own team. And I'll get to how that maybe helped him here in a moment. But nonetheless, 917, hard to deny it. Pretty great. 65.5 a game, 11.6 per target, which is still his single season best. That is the stat right there, which I'll also explain here in a moment. JuJu dominated right away. And then his second year, it was not like that was an aberration. There was not a sophomore slump for JuJu. 14-26, 7 TDs rookie year, 7 TDs his sophomore year. So that didn't go down. You're getting over 100 catches. His only season with 100-plus receptions, I believe he was at a 111 clip. Again, great for a sophomore receiver. 89.1 per game in terms of yards. That's a big jump from where he was his rookie year. That's how you see over 500 more receiving yards for JuJu. 8.6 yards per target, though. That does go down, but the overall production was there and more receptions equal the yards. Same TDs. So you could actually argue the tea leaves were there in terms of, while the gaudy yards were there, the analytic numbers went down. And if you move in the analytic numbers that sophomore season when AB was still there, you maybe could argue some of those should have jumped higher. Maybe it would have been a little higher even in the overall production. But I'm not going to pick at the sophomore season, okay? JuJu was great his first 2 years. Above expectations. But then there was the question of, is he truly a number one receiver? Because, of course, during this period, we're also dealing with, as I mentioned earlier, tons of drama by Antonio Brown. This is where my interactions with him really were at a peak in terms of covering him and him going crazy. He blocked me on Twitter still because of those interactions, and it led to his exit with the Steelers. JuJu saw how negative that was, which I'll also get to in a moment on how JuJu is handling himself this offseason and how that maybe plays into what JuJu is saying and doing this offseason. Now, knowing in my eyes that he's going to be leaving the Pittsburgh Steelers and that perception from those rabid JuJu fans and even trying to catch those other fans in general. But JuJu was great those first 2 years. Then, while many were saying, okay, we already know now he's the number one guy on the Steelers, but is he truly number one receiver in the NFL? We're seeing that contract coming up soon. So does he need to prove himself? He needs to step up and be a true number one and have a big year without Antonio Brown. Because people like myself and others were saying that, okay, JuJu's great, but he also had the security of Antonio Brown those first 2 years. And even if he was better than expectations out of the draft, which, again, don't take anything away from him for doing that. That was him individually having a great year, great 2 years. But Antonio Brown was the receiver that the opponents were keying in on. Antonio Brown was the receiver that was dealing with that double coverage. JuJu was more likely to be open because AB was dealing with the stress of defensive coordinators and their assistant coaches sitting there throughout the week and staying up at night trying to eliminate AB from that game plan. Once they started doing it for JuJu, which now gets into last year and the year before, 2019 and 2020, you're seeing 552 yards for JuJu in 2019. And I will give you, before anyone yells, and I will see this in the comments section, yes, he was injured. Maybe he wasn't healthy that whole year. And, of course, he didn't play that full season, so I get it. But we're going to get to the rest of that in a moment. 552, only 3 touchdowns, 46 yards per game. So here is the more per game, the more analytic numbers. Doesn't matter how many games you overall play. This is not totality. Granted, the yards were not there in total, but we get it because he didn't play a full season. 46 yards per game and 7.9 yards per target, which is just in his direction, not necessarily reception. Yards after catch also is there. And again, that dipped every single season. Now, I understand Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges were throwing over the football. I get it. Last year, though, because going into last season, there was pressure on JuJu. I argued that JuJu and James Conner, who it seems from reading those tweets, everybody knows and he knows he's gone from the Steelers, and they obviously need to improve the running back position. It's a whole other show, but he did not become that number one, and even the strongest Conner fans, and I like him as a person too, so this also isn't personal, he's not a featured back, and not that they necessarily have to have a featured back to win championships. That's been proven in the NFL in recent years. They need better from Conner. He at least needs to stay healthier, but that's another show. But I said Conner and JuJu were the two players in the league. Maybe you throw Aaron Rodgers in there again, and he became MVP of the league despite not getting back to another Super Bowl, that had the most pressure on them entering last season. And JuJu played with Ben last year. Now, Ben, yes, obviously he declined the last few weeks of the season. The last really 4 weeks of the season, and then you throw into the playoff game, he wasn't great. He wasn't even good in that postseason game where he threw 4 picks, and despite all the yards, way too many pass attempts, wasn't the best of Ben and certainly hurt the team. He's going to be back next year. But prior to that, Ben was at the minimum game managing. Okay, maybe people saying he was MVP, that was a bit much. but he certainly was at least game managing, wasn't throwing all the picks. And if you look overall at the numbers from Ben Roethlisberger last year, they were similar to, say, Baker Mayfield. There's some praise for his production last year. 3,800 plus passing yards for Big Ben. Solid. Look at his QBR. Look his QBR is right there with Baker. Look at his completion percentage, not bad. Look at the TDs. Look at the interception ratio, similar to Baker again. No, not MVP. Maybe Baker needs to be better. Maybe he's overrated. I've argued that before. And yes, Ben needs to be way better this year than last. But in overall play, you look at the overall season, you certainly look at those first 11 weeks, which I could even just point to for JuJu if I want to crunch those numbers. Ben wasn't great. He wasn't good enough at the end, but he wasn't horrendous. He wasn't bad. And he certainly was better than Mason Rudolph and Duck over a full season. I still believe he'd be better than Mason Rudolph and Duck over a full season, or Dobbs too, or Haskins, or whatever you want to throw in there, which is why Ben's back for one more season. Certainly at a way reduced rate, and if he wouldn't have taken that cap hit reduction, if he wouldn't have taken a lower hit in salary and spread things out, then he wouldn't be back. But he's willing to, and he's going to be back. So if JuJu's there in 2021, he will receive the ball from Ben, not Mason and Duck. And obviously Mason and Duck, that was the worst year for JuJu, but the worst for everybody. However, James Washington, and yes, he has a connection from the college days at Oklahoma State with Mason. But you look at Deontay Johnson, who was a rookie that year, so hadn't experienced Ben at that point and later will. Yards per catch, yards after the catch, all those analytic numbers. He was better than JuJu. Separation. He got better separation than JuJu. JuJu struggled to get separation just in general. And in fact, has struggled to get separation every year since AB left. So when AB was there, separation, wonderful for JuJu. Wide open for JuJu, getting the yards. When wide open, he's fine. He would then have a problem getting separation without AB being there, which means he's garnering more double coverage, so it's more work for him individually, and that would even lead to some drops. The whole thing went down without AB being there. And maybe that was natural. But what I think everybody's come to the conclusion, and even the stronger JuJu fans I've seen this, so tip of the cap for you for, I don't have a hat on today like I normally do, for finally admitting this part as well, is that JuJu's not a number one. Okay, JuJu can be a great number two receiver. I'm not saying I wouldn't want him on my team if money wasn't there. I know some others have said even if money's not a thing, I still wouldn't want JuJu. For example, my colleague Mike Vakovican here, and the leader of our mothership, of our family of networks, and also my co-host for Mic'd Up, which is now our morning show that I'll plug on Pittsburgh Sports Live. Make sure to subscribe. Bottom of the video, smash the button. You'll get notifications when that show pops every morning. Said he doesn't want JuJu just in general, even if he was free. I'm not going to go that far. Okay, while this is a deep position, JuJu is the best of this bunch. He has certainly proven that. The others certainly have their issues despite stepping up and playing well at times, maybe above expectations for themselves as well. Like, say, again, Deontay Johnson that I bring up. I think James Washington can step and even give you more. He's done well at times when provided the opportunity, and maybe he'll get more without JuJu there. But JuJu is somebody that if he's free, I can get over some of those antics. I can get over some of those issues, and I want him. Despite those antics certainly being annoying to me. I will tell you that. But look at the pure production. We can get just to the numbers. JuJu has been worse every year, despite immediately being above expectations, and he's been worse significantly since AB's gone, which means we agree he's not a number one wide receiver. So if we're going to agree JuJu's not a number one, we need to understand what JuJu thinks of himself, him and his agent. Maybe they realize this. Maybe they've admitted this too. But if you read the tea leaves this offseason in different shows he's appeared on, whether it's him, his mother, whoever else, or even what he said publicly on Twitter, etc., JuJu says he loves Pittsburgh. I don't think he's lying. I think he does like it. I think he likes the area, honestly. I think he's got over the weather situation and his bike being stolen. I think he likes Steelers fans. I think most of them like him, so I think he does like them. I have no problem with his social media and his personal brand that some don't like. Athletes today are going to do that. That's his own money. That's his own business. Fine. I think it's not good when you're dancing and the team is losing. That's a bad look, but go make your money how you can. I'm not going to tell him not to do it. I just think that when your team's sucking, you shouldn't try to promote yourself above the team. That's all I'm saying. But in general, no problem with it. And I think he does like the Steelers fans. So I'm not going to call him a liar. I don't know that to be true. I'm not going to say he's lying. But he also says every single time, I want to be paid fairly. So that means one of two things, okay? That JuJu feels he's the number one receiver and is not understanding everything I'm saying now and feel he's better than that, and he's going to argue Mason and Duck 2 years ago and is going to say, AB, yeah, he was the number one then, but he's a Hall of Famer, and that doesn't mean that I'm not a number one. Whatever he wants to make up, they're going to try to sell. I think it's pretty clear here. that JuJu's a great number 2. He's not a number 1. Okay. At least if you go back a couple years ago, right now he's a good number 2. Because I get 97 catches, but 831 last year in terms of total yards, not good. 9 TDs, that is good. That, in fact, was the best of his single season. So that's good. That's an advantage for him to argue in the meetings. 51.9 yards a game. That's only a little bit of a bump with Mason and Duck, and that was with Ben. That's way down from where he was 3 years ago, and way down even from where he was his rookie year. And then 6.5 per target. Again, that's lower than even with Mason and Duck. That's the worst of his career by far, and significantly lower than where he was with Antonio Brown, certainly in his rookie year. So 97 catches, great. 9 TDs, great. He'll point to those, I'm sure, for the cash. 831, not great. All those analytic numbers of yards per everything, way down, not good last year. So numbers-wise, I think it's proven. Good number 2. He could argue great number 2. Some could argue with that. I'm not going to spend all day crying over that. Not a number 1, though. Not number 1. Great or good number 2, not number 1, period. Which means, does he want number 1 money? Does he think he's a number 1? Because some team out there might pay it. The Jets, the Raiders. Some team might pay it. So does he just feel because he always says he wants treated fairly in terms of money. That's what he says in these shows. He loves Pittsburgh. Okay. He wants to be a Steeler, wants a legacy. I think he does understand the history now, even if he didn't know it at USC. Okay, great. But he also always mentions, I want to be paid fairly. So what's fair to him? Does he feel like he's a number 1? Because if so, that's never going to happen with the Steelers. Yes, they're now under the cap for the Ben restructuring. Great. Marquise Pouncey retiring. That helps. Cam Hayward restructuring. That's great. Now they're finally under the cap. But number 1, JuJu's not the only decision that needs to be made this offseason, okay? Not even the only decision that needs to be made this offseason, into the future, or next offseason. They need to be thinking about more than just this year. Not just JuJu. It is a deep position that everybody knows that I've said earlier. Yeah, Deontay Johnson. James Washington. I didn't even bring up yet Chase Claypool, who I think is being groomed to be the new JuJu and was drafted. Similar situation out of Notre Dame. A great player. Maybe had a little bit more hype in college than, say, JuJu. But I don't think anyone thought he'd be this. Rookie year was exceptional, was historic, was Randy Moss compared, was setting records for the team and even the league through a few games in terms of touchdowns. So JuJu's 9 TDs, great, but Chase Claypool setting history for a rookie at that point. Certainly proven he can get TDs, and almost similar to JuJu in terms of his bulkiness, in terms of his muscular ability to be able to do those slot routes more than just being a deep receiver. They're neither one of them are really a deep receiver. They're not like Moss that way, but they can kind of go through the middle. They can take a hit. They can go run those routes. They know the routes. But I could argue Claypool's even better at it. I could argue Claypool's even stronger than JuJu, and I could argue they drafted a better version of JuJu when they did last year, okay? Getting great production out of Claypool. And you just go down the line. They got Eric Ebron, too, as a great pass-catching tight end. They maybe need a blocking tight end. But in terms of receiving production for Ben, it's there with or without JuJu. And JuJu's not coming off a great season overall, okay? So does he want number 1 money? It's not going to happen. Despite being under the cap now, paying JuJu number 1 money should not be your priority based on depth of position, based on needs being elsewhere at a higher clip, and based on the ability to constantly draft the position, going all the way back with Kevin Colbert to Plexico Burress, Antonio Holmes, Emmanuel Sanders. I could keep going on and on. JuJu, Antonio Brown, Claypool, hell, the James Washington, Deontay Johnson. I don't think they're bad draft picks. It's really not been, and there really hasn't been any bad draft picks for Colbert in terms of receivers. Or certainly, if there has been, yeah, I guess Lima Sweet, etc. There's been way more success as a receiver, as receivers in terms of he's drafted. The Steelers have drafted receivers better than really any team over the last 15 years. So their ability to draft really well, okay, the depth of the position and the cap situation and the future tells me JuJu's not getting number 1 money. Now, if he loves Pittsburgh so much like he's been saying and he wants to give a hometown discount, okay, maybe go in that direction. I highly doubt it based on him saying he wants to be paid fairly. And even if he believes fairly is number 2 production because he realizes he's not number 1, maybe he's taking that slice of humble pie and he thinks fairly is number 2 money. Maybe on the higher end, maybe even on the lower end. Maybe he just wants to be a Steeler so bad he'll take number 2 money just in general, and that's to him fairly. Okay, how long of a deal does he want? That's another question then, because as we stated earlier, they can draft a position really, really well. So it's just a pure luxury than a necessity. They have other needs again. The money's better than it was if I did this show a week or so ago, but still not nearly great for what the Steelers need to do to improve over the next couple of years and potentially rebuild as well. And this is where some of these antics come into play. Again, I'm annoyed by him. I'm not going to say, again, he's not a bad person. I don't have a problem necessarily with them, except the dancing while the team's losing. I did have a problem with that. But just overall, I don't have a problem with them donating money, of course. I don't have a problem with him taking a girl to a dance, a homecoming. I don't have a problem with him on Twitch every day or on TikTok. It's just, okay, he's doing his own personal brand. I don't like sitting behind him in traffic while he's trying to dance and add a video there for social media and for the likes. No, I do have a problem with that if I'm behind him in traffic, because actually was once a couple years ago while he was trying to dance and blocked off traffic on a major bridge in Pittsburgh. Not down with that, because that I literally had to wait there for 20 minutes while JuJu shot a TikTok. Not cool, okay, or whatever it was at that point, but for social. Not down with that if that's what he's gonna do for TikToks. He's calmed down there in terms of stopping traffic in Pittsburgh, because that's just asinine and it's so bad already. But again, I don't have a problem with him as a person. But there are some that believe he's similar to AB in terms of his immaturity. I don't think he's nearly AB level immature. I don't think he's nearly AB level as a bad guy. I disagree there. But I do think JuJu is immature in general. And I know he's 24. I get it. But he's still immature. So I think based on what happened with AB, based on the depth, based on the ability to draft receivers, and based on having so much need elsewhere, they're not willing to pay a long-term deal to JuJu, even if he agrees he's number 2 for that style money, knowing that it's just not necessary, and he could go down the wrong road. I wouldn't be shocked if he does. I don't think he's AB level bad guy. I don't think we're going to see criminal reports. I don't think he's almost going to kill a toddler or have women claiming sexual assault like happened with Antonio Brown. But I think that the antics aren't loved by the Steelers, and even what Cam Hayward said during the season in some of the Zooms with us in media, that he doesn't want to like talking about JuJu. He didn't want to, he didn't kind of love, Tomlin said this too, they didn't love the dancing on logos while losing. They're not going to tell him to stop, but they didn't love it, and they didn't want to keep talking about JuJu. And then right after hearing Cam say that, he comes out, TikToks, and says, okay, I'm going to do it anyway, right in your face. I'm into that respect, basically. Well, that's not disrespectful to us, granted it is, or to the fans. Some of them don't even care. It's disrespectful to Cam Hayward, your team leader, or your head coach, Mike Tomlin. That's right. That's a middle finger right to them, because they said they didn't want you to do it any longer. They said they didn't want to talk about it any longer. If you throw a video up and say, I'm going to do this anyway, I don't care what you say, and here's another one even while we're still losing, right in everyone's face, it might be funny. You're going to get some likes. The JuJu fans are going to ride or die for you. But Cam Hayward, the team leaders, like Tomlin, the head coach, they're going to have to answer for you again. It's basically saying, I'm going to do whatever I want. I don't care what you want. I don't care what helps you. I don't care what you're saying as my leader, as my veteran, as my head coach, as my technical superior on the team. That's disrespectful to them. I don't think they love that. But it's just really about the production declining, him not being a 1. Okay. I don't think the antics help. The money not needing to be wasted on him because it's more of a luxury than a necessity. Yes, he's immature. Granted, yes, his age, but I don't think that's something that they're enjoying or loving based on hearing what the Steelers and management are saying, no matter what the fans will tell you as they throw the puff pieces out there. I was on the Zooms. I heard what was really said, and what we have on Pittsburgh Sports Live is the real legit comments, not trying to spin them to what is positive only. This isn't a PR promotion. This isn't a fan blog. This is legit coverage. Again, subscribe, Steelers Now. Go over there. You'll see. And I just don't think it's necessary. So again, I don't have a problem with JuJu. I don't. I really, really don't. I don't want to get it twisted. I don't have a problem with JuJu as a person. I don't hate JuJu the man. But I don't feel like JuJu needs to be back. I don't feel like JuJu is a necessity to re-sign. I don't want to throw up the tweet that says, now do JuJu every time a move's made. I don't feel that is necessary. I'm not going to go grab those likes. They're not going to come to me because I'm going to say what I feel, even if it loses me followers. And as much as I know that JuJu has played well overall, I also know there's been a dip of production without AB. I also know he's been worse every year with or without Ben. I also know that he's not somebody that can step up and carry a team as a receiver like some of the great receivers of the past that many thought he was like at one point. I know that he's basically proven he's more of a number 2 than a 1. I know he wants to be paid fairly, and yes, they're now under the cap, but not that much under the cap. The cap situation's better, but not great. And I know this team has so much more in terms of needs. I know the needs are there. I know receivers not an incredible need despite the drop passes. You can get over that. I truly believe these receivers can improve from the drops and get better with those drops. And JuJu was dropping passes too. I don't think you signed JuJu to a mega deal because Deontay Johnson dropped a few passes on a few weeks that were bad for everyone, okay? Or James Washington too. Claypool. I don't see it, okay? You can correct the drops without paying somebody this type of cash when you've been cap-strapped going into this offseason. Okay, and you need to do a lot more for the future. So I don't hate JuJu. I don't. This is not personal. I think JuJu's a nice guy. I think he means well overall, and I really do think he likes being a Steeler and likes Pittsburgh overall and certainly likes the fans. But I think JuJu's not going to be back because he's saying he wants to be back. He's saying he loves Pittsburgh. He's saying he loves the fans. But he's also bringing up money, and I think he's saying all of that to not go down the AB path. He's also been a little quieter on social media in general. The antics have calmed down. I think JuJu is basically making it clear to fans, don't be mad at me, but I won't be back. I think JuJu wants fans not to be mad at him when he's not back, when he does not return to the Steelers. I don't think he wants to go down the AB path in terms of legacy, but he knows he won't be back. So while the Pittsburgh Steelers maybe could bring him back, and it wouldn't hurt the team if it's a really team-friendly deal, I don't think they need to bring back JuJu. I don't think JuJu's coming back. And I think the numbers dictate that with a completely unbiased approach. Because, again, I don't think JuJu needs to be a Steeler any longer. I don't think he's going to be a Steeler any longer. And it's just not personal for me. Hit us up throughout the Now family of networks. Of course, SteelersNow.com here for the Steelers coverage. At PGH Steelers Now on Twitter. At PGH Sports Live on Twitter. And make sure to hit up this channel and subscribe. Bottom of the video, hit that button. It'll make us easy. It'll make it easier for us. It'll make us be able to deliver that content to you free. It's free to do so thanks to our sponsors here. I'm Mike Asti, and again, this was not personal. This is not an attack on JuJu. I'm not hating, but JuJu, as a Steeler, that era is over.